Hey everyone, my name is Sean Arnold and welcome to a new Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist sub-series that I'm going to be making called Playing to Win. Today we are going to be looking at the Zings archetype. Zings are a very powerful archetype and they have managed to top many regionals since their debut in 2014, and even up to the recent tournaments in 2017 they still do pretty well because they are a fantastic archetype. We are going to be looking at Zefra Zings, as those were the variants which were able to top during the April 2016 format, which is what Legacy of the Duelist follows. So Zefra Zings is what we're focusing on today, but if you don't have the Zing cards yourself, this is how you get them. You got to play through the campaign all the way until you fight Rex Goodwin, which is in the Duel Signs of Doom. Once you beat him, you will unlock his Duelist challenge, and in his Duelist challenge he has the Zing archetype, Zing Radiance. Play him over and over again until you get all the cards from his deck, and then you pretty much have all the cards you need for this build, except for the Zefra monsters. If you don't want to go down that route though, you can always go to Jack Atlas's pack in the card shop, open up some cards, and hopefully you'll get some Zings that way. Although I prefer to go for the Duelist challenge because it's a little bit more reliable than going random through the card shop. For the Zefra monsters, I'm afraid they are locked behind the DLC pack. You don't have to use the Zefra monsters. There are other Zings variants which you can use to be competitive, but so if you want the Zefra monsters, which we're going to be talking about today, you must get the Declan vs Selena DLC pack. Then you must beat Declan, and then you get his Duelist challenge, which is Zefra Defiant Strike. That being said, like I said, you don't force yourself to buy it if you don't really want to. Now let's look at Zings and talk about what they can do. Okay, so there are 17 cards in the Zing archetype, but we won't be looking at all of them here today. We'll only be looking at the ones which are most relevant to the build, which I'll be sharing with you later on. Let's first break down what the monsters can do, because there's a lot of common effects here, and so we want to kind of look at the archetype overall so I don't end up repeating myself too many times. First of all of the monsters share the following, all of the effect monsters share the following effect, and that is when these cards are destroyed by a battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one Zing monster from your deck. Now, if the monster that you sent to the graveyard has 0 attack, it's going to bring a monster in defense position. Sorry, in attack position. If the monster has 0 defense, it's going to bring a monster in defense position. So that's a really good easy way to follow by. So ideally, if you have a high attack monster on the field like Suwani and it is destroyed, you get a defense position monster like Pulau or Bixi or Xiaotu. The exception to this rule is Chewin. Chewin can summon a monster from your deck in any position, and these monsters cannot summon themselves from their deck. But Chewin is a little bit more flexible because he has 0 attack and 0 defense, so he can summon anyone in any position. Although you don't even need to really care about that too much, because most of these monsters will be used as synchro summons. Why is that? Because these 5 monsters at the top also have the same effect of during your opponent's main phase or battle phase, you can immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon one synchro monster using only Zing monsters you control. This is a quick effect. This is a really powerful effect. By being able to summon monsters during your opponent's turn, you can be very disruptive to their plays, and when you look at the synchro monsters, it will all come together as to why they're so good. Speaking of which, this encourages you to do a lot of synchro summoning because of these 5 monsters' special effects. The 2 monsters in the side deck here are tuner monsters, and they don't give any buff to your synchro monsters, but the 5 monsters here do give a buff to your synchro monsters. Bixi makes it so the synchro monster you bring out is immune to trap effects. Palau makes it so it's immune to spell effects. Be'er makes it so it can't be destroyed by battle. Suwani gives it a 500 attack and defense boost, and Tauti makes it so that it can't switch control. Imagine bringing out a really powerful monster, let's say something like Clear Wing Synchro Dragon, which can negate your opponent's monster's effects. By bringing it out with immunity to spell or trap destruction, or being able to be immune to being destroyed by battle, you can really create a monster which is very frustrating for your opponent to deal with and take it off your field. So that's kind of the main appeal of these monsters here. Also, the tuner monsters also are your playmakers for the deck, and you'll be definitely running these at free. Chewin makes it so that anytime one of your Zing monsters are destroyed and sent to the battle, you can revive this card from your graveyard. If you do so, however, the next time you send it to the graveyard, it will be banished. Chewin makes it so that you can swarm the field quite easily and then get into a synchro summon. So when one of these are destroyed, revive it from the graveyard, and then you have 2 monsters or more to get onto a synchro summon. Xiaotu, on the other hand, is your biggest playmaker for the deck, and you definitely want to run this card at free. If you have no other monster cards on your field, you can send 2 Zing cards from your hand to the graveyard to special summon 1 monster with 0 defense and 1 monster with 0 attack from your deck onto your field, and that will allow you to then go for a synchro summon. It's a really powerful play considering the monsters that you can bring out, but it also allows you to use multiple of these protection effects on a synchro monster. Overall, they are a fantastic little archetype here, and let's talk about the other cards which support them. So, out of the remaining cards here which we have available to us, there are only 2 SpellTrap cards which I really care about. Zing Path and Zing Creation. Zing Path is a really good card. As I said, these monsters are all give you effects when sent to the graveyard, so they kind of help you to float and keep your card count high. Zing Path allows you to shuffle 3 Zing monsters in your graveyard back into your deck, so you can continue cycling them through your deck to the field, but also gives you 2 cards to draw when you do so. It's a really strong card, and I often run this at 2. Zing Creation is also a fantastic card, and it makes it so that when any monster you control is destroyed by a battle or card effect, you get a Zing monster from your deck. That is a really powerful effect, and it helps you to swarm quite easily. The only thing you need to be aware of with this is that it makes it so that you cannot special summon monsters from your extra deck, which are except for synchro monsters. That's going to be important a little bit later on, particularly when we talk about our next 2 cards, which are Zefraxi, Treasure of the Zing, and Zefranu, Secret of the Zing. These are the Zefra cards, and this is why you run the Zefra engine in here. If I quickly go into our side over here and we go and get a couple more cards, and we'll talk about the Zefra engine in a little bit more detail if I can find. Where is the stupid card? There it is, Oracle of Zefra. So, what do the Zefra cards add to this deck? Zefranu is really good. He is also your second main playmaker for the deck. When he is pendulum summoned, or when he is destroyed by a battle or card effect, you don't get to special summon another monster, unfortunately. What you do get to do, however, is search out a Zing spell or trap card, or a Zefra spell or trap card. That includes Oracle Zefra, Zing Path, or Zing Creation. This is really good because then you can only run a few copies of these cards and have a way to search it out from your deck. So you can have one of these destroyed, bring out Zefranu, and if it's destroyed, then search out another card. It helps you to float a little bit more. What's also good about Zefranu is, again, it is a pendulum monster, which means it doesn't get stuck into your hand quite easily. It's a scale 7 pendulum monster, with Zefraxi being a scale 1, and between these two, if you have these in your scales, you can special summon any Zing monster from your hand to the field, except for Chewing, because it's also a level 1 monster. Last but not least, Zefranu, it has 2600 defense, which can be really good and can save you from a lot of situations depending on the attack of your opponent's monsters. And last but not least, there it is, one more thing I forgot. He's a level 6 monster. The weakness of Zings is that their monster levels are quite low. With the highest level tuner and the highest level monster, the highest level synchro you can bring out with only 2 cards is level 7. But with the level 6 monster, that lets you get into your level 8 monsters like Baxia, and Xiaofeng a little bit easier. Zefranu's level 6 is what you're going to be using quite a lot to make a lot of synchro plays, and yeah, it's just a great card overall. Zefraxi is not as good as Zefranu, unfortunately, but it is still worth running. First of all, because it's a 1 scale monster, so you can search it out quite easily and use it for pendulum summons. It works with Oracle Zefra, which we'll talk about in a bit. But also, when it is special summoned from the main deck, you can target one Zing monster or Zefra monster you control and turn it into a tuner. So you can special summon this to the field, choose any other monster you have, and it becomes a tuner monster. That allows you a bit more flexibility because then you don't have to rely on Xiao and Chewing all the time for your synchro summons. You can turn any monster and then you can use their quick effects in order to do a quick synchro summon during your opponent's turn. So it is quite beneficial in that way, but you don't really rely on it as much as you do for like Zefranu for different plays. Last but not least, we have Oracle Zefra here. Oracle Zefra is an amazing field spell card. It is basically a reinforcement of the army for Zefra monsters. When this card is activated, you can add one Zefra monster from your deck to your hand. Also, when you special summon a monster using a Zefra monster as a material, ideally a synchro summon, you can get an effect based on what type of monster you use. So if you use a synchro summon with a Zefra monster, you get the effect to be able to choose one monster and place it on top of your deck. This can lead to a lot of crazy combos, and we'll talk about them a bit more later. But ideally, you can search out any monster you want, put it on top of your deck, and then set up your future plays. Last but not least, we've got to talk about the synchro monsters here. We have Baxia, Yahtzee, and Xiaofeng. Baxia is your main go-to synchro monster for Yang Zings. He has a disruption effect where depending on the attributes or different attributes you use to summon it out, you can shuffle cards on your opponent's field back into their deck. If you use 2 monsters with different attributes to bring him out, you can shuffle 2 cards of your opponent's field back into their deck. This is a very, very good disruption effect, and again, this is something you'll be doing on your opponent's turn. He also has crazy combos where you once per turn you can target 1 card you control and special summon 1 level 4 monster from your graveyard. You destroy the card you control, ideally a Yang Zing monster, special summon a level 4 or lower monster from your graveyard, and then you'll get the Yang Zing monster's pop effect and bring back another monster from your deck. This can lead to a variety of different combos, and we'll talk a bit more about them later on. Yahtzee is also a very, very good monster. It makes it so that you cannot be targeted by an opponent's card effect. Imagine this effect with some of these monsters' protection effects. Yahtzee, let's say you got Yahtzee out with Beyond, so he cannot be destroyed by battle or targeted by card effects, or maybe he's immune to trap effects. Give him an attack boost with Suwani, whatever your mind has. You can do a lot to make him a really, very indestructible force. He also has the following effects. Once you can target 1 Yang Zing monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls and destroy them, which isn't a problem for you because your Yang Zing monsters float. And also when this card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 worm type monster from your deck in defense position. Really, really good floaty synchro monster, and it can be very hard to deal with. But the boss monster for your deck is definitely Xiaofeng. Xiaofeng is an amazing monster, and where people say if you get Xiao2 out on your first turn, you pretty much win the game if you know what you're playing against. Xiaofeng makes it so that when it is synchro summoned, any attribute which you used to bring this monster out, he will negate the effects that your opponent controls. Sorry, I know I said that a bit wrong, but I'll explain it again. I'll read the card out. Your opponent cannot activate effects of monsters with the same original attributes as the Yang Zing monsters used for the synchro summon of this card. So he's a light monster, but let's say you use Chewin, and let's say you use Chewin, Palau, and we go for Zefra to bring out him as a level. Is that level 1 plus? Well, sorry, that's not level. I've got about doing this math right. Let's say you use a level 1. Use a light monster, use Bixie as a level 2, and then use Zefra as a level 6 to bring him out. You will negate the effects of all water types, light types, and earth types that your opponent controls. Now, that doesn't make it sound really good, but imagine playing against a Blue Eyes deck. Imagine being able to just completely shut down their deck so they can't activate their light monster effects. Similarly, let's say you're playing against Burning Abyss or Phantom Knights, and you might use Tauti instead. You can use Tauti as a level 5. Let's say you use Xiao2 as a level 2, and then Bixie as a level 2, and you will be able to negate all dark effect monsters. Really, really powerful effect. Xiaofeng can just win you games just like that if you know exactly what your opponent's playing and know what to look for. Second effect is when this card is destroyed by a battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you add 1 tuner monster from your deck to your hand. A nice floaty effect, but not too amazing really, if I'm honest, but if you use it, you're probably going to go get Xiao2 out for its effect. And then, last but not least, this is also a fun effect. When an opponent's card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon 1 worm type monster from your deck in defense position whose original attribute matches the attribute of the monster that was destroyed. So let's say you attack your opponent's Blue Eyes with this somehow, or any other card, you'll be able to search out a monster which matches its attribute to your side of the field. That's the archetype overall as a whole. I know it was a lot of talking, but there's so much to this deck, and it took me a while to get my head around, and so hopefully the explanation will help you there. So let's talk about a deck build and talk about what a full deck looks like. In terms of monsters, we have, if I search this by card frame, so we talk about monsters. So let's start with the monsters. We have 2 Beyonds, 1 Bixie, 3 Chewins, 1 DD Crow, 2 Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, 3 Xiao2 because it's very important, 3 Maxi, 1 Palau, 2 Suwani, 1 Tauti, and then we move on to the Pendulum monsters. We have 3 Archery Eccentric, 2 Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, 3 Zefra and 3 Zefraxi. And if we go into spells, not a lot of spells in this deck. We have 2 Oracle Zefra for searching. Sky Iris is there to combo. What you can do with Sky Iris is you can play Oracle Zefra, search out a Zefra monster like Zefra. Then you can play Sky Iris on top of it, destroy one of your Yang Zings to do a search so it floats, and then also get Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon to your hand. play Aldi's Pendulum Dragon, destroy it during your end phase, and then search out the other scale. So in your hand you have a level 7 scale and a level 1 scale for a Pendulum Summon on your next turn. Moving on, we have 3 Terraformers for the field spell search. Then we have Yangzing Path at 2, 1 Yangzing Creation, and 1 Zefra Defiant Strike, which makes it so it's basically a Solemn Judgment, but you use a Zefra monster from your extra deck as a material to use this card. For your Synchro deck, you want cards which disrupt or do effects on your monster's turn, because you will be synchro summoning a lot during your monster's turn. So if we look at this by level, if I can change this, I just had it on level, my apologies. Let's go back to level. We start with Herald of Arclight. It negates everything and it combines really well with Baxia. Herald of Arclight can negate anything your opponent activates, and also makes it so any monster sent from the hand or main deck is banished instead. That can be very disruptive to your opponent if they are doing certain strategies. Also, Baxia can revive it from the graveyard, so you can destroy one of your Yangzings, bring back Herald of Arclight, and could carry on negating their effects over and over again. Is such a strong play. We have High Speed Void Chinambra. This doesn't really do an effect in your opponent's turn, but it can be good for an OTK setup, particularly when, say, set up with, say, Suwani or something that makes it immune to some type of destruction. This is a really good card to use as a level 5 option, but there's other things you can use if you want instead. Metaphys Horus is where things get interesting. Metaphys Horus is, when it is synchro summoned, depending on what you used as a non-tuner material, you get the following effect. If you use an effect monster, you can choose one other card on the field and negate it. That can be very damaging during your opponent's turn. Or if you use a Pendulum monster, which is what you'll be using quite often, you choose one monster your opponent controls, and they will have to give control of it to you, so you can steal your opponent's monsters during their own turn. Then we have Black Rose Dragon. Black Rose Dragon, I think everyone knows, destroys the entire field, so doing that during your opponent's turn can be very painful, but also you destroy all cards on the field, but your Yangzis are going to float, so who cares? Black Rose Moonlight Dragon also gets rid of monsters on the opponent's side of the field. Clear Wing Synchro negates effects. Meteor Burst is mostly for countering Cosmos and BAs, because they activate effects during the battle phase. Then we've got Yahtzee, which we talked about. 3 bucks here because it's that important. Ignista isn't something you want to bring out during your opponent's turn, but it can be very disruptive to Pendulum strategies. You can choose one Pendulum monster on the field and one card in your Pendulum zone, and in the Pendulum zone, and destroy it. Then shuffle one card on the field into the deck. This means your opponent's cards too. So if your opponent's playing Performer Powers, you can target their Pendulum card, then also shuffle one card from their side of the field back into the deck. Void Ogre Dragon is a great monster to bring out too. You can negate spell or trap cards while you have no cards in your hand. So really strong effect there. And last but not least, we have Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, because it is Trishula and it is just amazing. Last thing we're going to talk about here before we move on is talking about side decking strategies. As we are looking at this deck for high level competitive play, we definitely want to look at having a decent strategy. So when looking at side decks, I think the best approach in this day and age is to ask yourself, what is your deck best at? Is it best at going first or second? Fortunately, Yangzis are good quite equally at going first or second, so you don't have to worry about that too much. So what I've decided is that in my main deck, I'm running some hand traps in case I end up going first. So hand traps is what you want to use. If your opponent is going first, you want hand traps to counter their plays on their first turn. If your opponent is going second, you want trap cards to disrupt their cards, because the trap cards are usually quite more powerful. So for hand traps, we've got 6 different cards. We've got 1 DD Crow, which can manage cards in your opponent's graveyard, 3 Maxi, which can give you 3 cards when your opponent special summons, and 2 Ghost Ochre and Snow Rabbit. If you are going second, ideally you would take this out for a variety, a set of trap cards, and the easy set of trap cards to do here would be the Solemn Brigade, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then Torrential Tribute and Vanity's Emptiness. So you take out your Maxis, take out your DD Crow, and take out your Ghost Ogre, and ideally you have these cards set up on your own turn so that you can negate your opponent's monsters' effects, special summons, clear their boards, or stop them from doing special summons altogether. Now, that depends on what deck you're playing against. The Solemn Brigade is pretty good against pretty much almost any deck, except for those that can repeatedly do lots and lots of special summons, because Solemn Strike can only really hit one card at a time. So if you don't think Solemn will work too well, then you might want to go for the artifact engine instead. And so instead of using all of these cards, what you're going to do is go for 3 copies of Artifact Sanctum, 1 copy of Lancia, 1 copy of Scythe, and then you can go for any other 1 card. Let's say we'll keep a Solemn Warning in there as our 6th card. Or I'll go for Vanity's Emptiness. Vanity's Emptiness is pretty much an all-round card. Let me make sure I'm doing this right. I am not doing this right. My apologies. Put the Sanctums back in. Get rid of these strikes. And we'll keep 1 more card. Which am I missing? What am I missing here? Oh, Yangzing Path went out by accident. So, ideally, the reason why you would go for the Artifact Engine instead is if you think your opponent, say, is playing things like Twin Twister, so they're going to get rid of your Solemn Strikes and you won't be able to use them, or they are doing a lot of special summoning, then maybe you want to use the Artifact Engine instead, because when these cards are destroyed, you get benefits from Twin Twister if they play against them. Lancia makes it so that if you use its effect, your opponent cannot banish cards for this turn, and Scythe makes it so your opponent cannot special summon cards from the extra deck. So you've really got to know your opponent's deck quite well, depending on what they want to play. Sometimes it might be better to go for the Artifact Engine than the Solemns. If you are but that's what you want to do if you are going to go first. If you are going second, you want something a little bit different. First of all, you want your hand traps. So let's put our hand traps back in. Put them back into the main deck. And then we are going to get rid of the Artifact Engine. So let's get those out. Where is Lancia and Scythe? Get rid of those 2. And Vanity's Emptiness. Because you don't really want a high trap count in your main deck. And what you then need are cards which can break your opponent's board. You need to assume that they're going to have monsters on the field which can disrupt your own plays and spell and trap cards. So for that, we're going to get rid of, we're going to bring in Dark Hole, Raigeki, and 2 Twin Twister. I'm going to take out Terraforming for that, and I might say take out, I don't know, maybe let's go for, let's take out the Odd Eyes Engine here. We'll take that out, and the Sky Iris. Let's put back in 1 card. Let's put back in a Terraforming and take out Sky Iris, and do something like that. And so that you have the options to destroy your opponent's back row and monsters on the field if you are going second, because you've got to expect that they will have their field set up. Hopefully your hand traps will be enough to disrupt them, but these cards will help you round it out, and then you've got a nice clear field to start going off. So that's the build, guys. That's how it looks. What we're going to do now is cut into a game and do some gameplay and do some commentary of what Zings can do in game. Okay, so here we are into some gameplay here. I'm playing against Trey and Crash. I've never played against this person before, but I chose this duel out of the videos which I managed to record because this was a game where I felt like my opponent was playing a deck which really strongly countered my build, but you'll see a bit more about that a little bit later on. On my first turn here, I played Oracle Zefra to search out a Zefraxi. There's not a whole lot I could do on this first turn here because my hand wasn't just that good. I'm hoping pretty much for a very good Max C play because you expect your opponent to be special summoning pretty much during any turn of a duel. So I set down Zefraxi and set down Zefra Strike in order to set up maybe some negation later on. But then my opponent sets 1 card face down, and now he is going to summon out a monster which goes by the name of DD Warrior Lady. DD Warrior Lady used to be one of my favorite cards in the game. Very old school style card, and what her effect is that whenever she battles, she can banish the monsters that she battled and herself at the end of the damage step. It's a really strong card, and it kind of suggested that my opponent's going to be focusing on a lot of banishing for this deck, which is really hard to deal with as Zing. But Zings and their floaty effects, they want to be sent to the graveyard as much as possible, but when they get banished, there's not a really whole lot you can do with them when you break their engine quite hard. So this is why I kind of chose this game here. My opponent now summons that DD Assailant, a stronger version of DD Warrior Lady, but must be destroyed by battle in order to get its effect to banish both itself and a monster. DD Warrior Lady attacks into my Chewin. Chewin goes down into the graveyard, and now I'm going to special summon another monster from my deck to the field. I'm going to go for something which can maybe provide a good bit of defense and kind of also float a bit. So I'm going to go for a copy of Zefranu, and Zefranu is going to go to the field with 2600 defense, and my opponent won't be able to deal with that. He does attack into Zefranu while it's in defense position, which kind of suggests to me maybe he isn't really familiar with how DD Assailant actually works, which I decided to take a bit of advantage of later on in the game here. DD Assailant must be destroyed by battle in order to get his effect, so attacking the defense position monster won't do much. On my own turn here, I play Archery the Eccentric. Archery the Eccentric is a fantastic pendulum monster for any deck that can support it, because it can be used as monster destruction and also SpellTrap destruction. So I use its effect to destroy DD Warrior Lady, because I don't really want to deal with DD Warrior Lady and have her banishing my monsters when I start to go off. And then he plays Macrocosmos. Macrocosmos brings out that sun monster there, and now we're going to use Archery the Eccentric to get that off the field as well. Both cards I really don't want to deal with a Zings deck. And if you are playing against a Zings deck and you are trying to counter them, or you know your opponent's going to do that, having effects which banish their cards or shuffles them back into the grave, into their deck, can be really powerful. Similarly, my opponent now plays Dark Core, which when you discard one card from your hand, you get to banish one card on the field. Try to banish my Zefra. I respond with Zefra Divine Strike and negate it. What that requires is one Zefra monster in your extra deck. You have to banish it to your banish pile, and then you can negate any effect your opponent activates. He then sets one card face down on the field by tributing his monster, which makes me a little bit worried, thinking, wow, what could that face down monster, who tribute summons a monster into set position? That's kind of crazy. I now draw into Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. Unfortunately, that gives me a level 3 and a level 6, which allows me to go for Xiaofeng, Phantom of the Zing. Now, as I said earlier in this video, Xiaofeng has a very strong effect, and that is for any Zing monsters that used to bring it out for a synchro summon, it negates the activations of those on my opponent's side of the field. So I used an Earth and a Light monster. The Light monster was Ghost Ogre, so it doesn't count, but the Earth monster will count. So now I attack DD Assailant, and DD Assailant's effect will not activate. What's also good is when Xiaofeng destroys when a card is destroyed on my opponent's side of the field while Xiaofeng's out, I can special summon a monster of the same attribute to my field. So I got an Earth monster beyond to my field. So I've managed to take control of this game a bit more now. Now my opponent plays Soul Release. That really hurt me. That really sucks, because I was hoping to get to a Zing path as soon as possible. But now he's going to banish all my cards from my graveyard and get rid of them, which is going to be a little bit annoying to deal with. Like I said, banishing is a very strong strategy against Zings. He now brings out DD Assailant one more time, goes into the battle phase and decides to go for my defense position monster. A decent play there, destroys Beyond, and Beyond is going to float and let me get another monster from my deck. This float effect is really hard for some decks to deal with. Banishing is a very good way to deal with it, but if you can't break this cycle, it can be really hard to deal with. I go for Chewing here because I wanted something that's a little bit flexible that I'll be able to use later on. And Chewing can revive itself from the graveyard, so I thought maybe that would be useful. And then I draw into Zefra. I don't really like to draw into Zefra too much unless I have a Zefraxu as well, so I can use it as a pendulum card. But there's not a whole lot we can do with our hand right now, so then I attack DD Assailant again. It won't go off, it won't activate its effect, and Xiaofeng will get me another Earth monster from my deck to the field. So now we can special summon a Zefra. So we've got a level 6 and a level 1 tuner on the field, which is nice because then we can set up for some synchro summon plays. I look at my extra deck and start thinking, what do I actually want to use to shut down my opponent? But I have a variety of different options, but I'm not quite sure exactly which one to do. I'm still worried about what that face down card is and what it could be. I'm worried there's only one card which I would imagine someone will summon in defense position that you would tribute summon, and that's Guardian Sphinx. And Guardian Sphinx can return all my monsters on the field back to my hand, so that will get rid of my synchro summon. So I thought to myself, let me leave it for now. I'm not going to bother. Let's see what my opponent does. My opponent on his turn brings out Cyber Valley. Cyber Valley has a variety of effects, but the one he's going to use is he's going to banish one card from his hand and Cyber Valley to take one card from his graveyard and pull it onto top of his deck. And so he very wisely goes for Macrocosmos because he knows that could really hurt my deck because of all the floatiness. But I'm not going to let that happen. We're going to shut that down, and I think this is going to be the last turn of the game. I bring out Xiao 2, which is an amazing monster, and first we're going to use a level 2 and a level 6 monster to bring out our level 8 Baxia, Brightness of the Zing. Baxia allows me to shuffle monsters or cards on my opponent's side of the field up to the number of cards I used that are Zing monsters for its synchro summon. So I get rid of his face down card, don't know what it was, but bye bye, see you. And now we use Baxia's other effect, and this is a really cool effect. I could have attacked the game here, but I actually wanted to show this for the video just so that you guys can see how this works and why Baxia is so good. Baxia tagged out my Chewing, and Chewing gets a search, so I got a level 2 for my deck and I got a level 2 for my graveyard. And this is a variety of combos. I couldn't bring out anything, but I want to show you why Herald of Arclight works so well, because Baxia can continuously cycle Herald of Arclight over and over again. And now we're going to attack the game. Guys, that's going to do it for this top tier deck video. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this little change. If you guys have any suggestions or feedback on how I can change or improve this, do let me know. But I'll see you soon. Take care.